Hello, my name's Sylvia, and I've been running and teaching the course Mindfulness for Neurodivergency for a few years now. And I wanted to put some of the key messages that we teach in that course online for everybody to benefit from. I've done several talks in other places, so it's not the first time I'm putting it out for free. The thing is, I'm quite neurodivergent. I've got ADHD, probably with some autism mixed in, difficult to say. I've also got diagnoses of complex trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder. And there's a lot of people that say some of the neurodivergency is based more in trauma than actually anything else, but it doesn't really matter where it comes from. What it is, it's a way of, the labels, if you like, are a way of understanding and making sense for me of the struggles I've had for my entire life. And they've given me a framework in which to re-examine everything I do. And that includes my approach to meditation and mindfulness. I meditated for nearly 15 years without really getting anywhere. I was very diligent and very determined and very desperate at times to kind of achieve this thing that you were supposed to achieve. And I realized that I wasn't achieving it, partly because I was going after it as a goal. So once that realization sunk in, I took a different angle at it, and I still realized I wasn't getting anywhere. My body and mind were just too restless to cope with the kind of conventional approaches to meditation. It wasn't getting any better. It wasn't a question of some sessions, sitting sessions were good and some were bad. It just wasn't getting any better. And I did all sorts of trainings, all sorts of courses with other people. I was teaching it myself. It came from the heart, but I wasn't getting the effects. And then I came across Thich Nhat Hanh's simple words, enjoy your practice. And that was like a whole, not just a single light bulb, but a whole stage lit revelation to me. I wasn't enjoying my practice. I was desperate to do it. I knew that it was the answer to having the life that I wanted to have, but it wasn't happening. So I started to look at what it was that I didn't enjoy, what it was I was struggling with. And it is a struggle. It was a struggle. It was an endless struggle. I would sit there and I'd be fighting my body to stay still, and I'd be fighting my brain to stay focused. And I wasn't achieving anything, or very rarely. I did feel better for doing the sitting and fighting, but it wasn't progressing. It wasn't lasting. So I can't say it had no beneficial effects, but it wasn't having, after 15 years or so, it wasn't having quite the effect I wanted. So I started playing with the practice. I started thinking, well, what is mindfulness? What is this thing that we're looking to understand and work towards? And I realized that it's very simple. It's just being present without having your thinking head on and without having to do anything. You can be physically active, but you're not doing anything in a goal-driven way. And I realized that I'd been actually practicing mindfulness for most of my life through simple jobs like gardening. Hanging out laundry is one of my best mindfulness meditations. It has been since my boys were little babies, and they're in their 40s now, so that gives you an idea of how long I've been hanging out washing mindfully and really enjoying the process. And I realized I'm already doing it in so many ways in my life, but I couldn't do it in a formal way. So I started to explore a bit further. And then I started to study at Southampton University the neuroplasticity of the ADHD brain and how mindfulness might affect this and help manage some of the symptoms that I experienced and many other with that diagnosis will experience. And there's so many aspects of ADHD. I'll go into them all over the weeks, and also autism and also PTSD and complex trauma. And other forms of neurodivergency as well. Obviously, they're not the only ones, but they're the ones I have more understanding of on a personal level as well as a academic level. Anyway, I didn't finish the PhD because I had a breakdown, and that in itself was a huge learning turning point in my life, and it enabled me to again look very deeply at what would work for me when I'm in the middle of a deep trauma. I'll come back to that later, but one of the things I did pick up from the research I was doing and the studying I was doing at the university was that neuroplasticity is based on repetitions or iterations. So the more times you repeat something, the more likely it is to stick. Now, this isn't rocket science. It's been known if you want to learn a skill, repeat it many times. But what I realized was that doing a 20-minute or attempting to do a 20-minute sit every day wasn't making progress, because 18 minutes of that would be struggling. So what if I took the first minute or 2 minutes that I could achieve something, and then I stopped? And then I went back and repeated that again later in the day. And I found that really helpful. That really started to make a difference on how I felt through the day. It was almost as if my stress level or my tiredness was ratcheting up at all, it would bring it back down. And that 2 minute or 30-second, if you want, 10 breaths if you want, as little as you want really, as little as you can hold it for, but holding that small amount of quality mindful time and that small amount of letting go was enough to make me realize that this was something I could use. I could do this, and I could do this many times a day. I didn't have to do the big sit. I didn't have to conform to the conventions. And so I've took that approach. And it was revelatory, because those 2 minutes became 3 minutes and became 5 minutes. I can now sit for longer periods of time, although I do have other strategies for helping me get through them. If I go to Plum Village and we've got a half hour or an hour even of sitting time to do, I can get through it. It's not always easy. I'm going to do a whole series of short videos on these subjects, so I'm going to address each aspect in a different video. I just want to do a series of shorts. But for now, just think about, and this also helps with trauma as well, because if you go into a deep meditation when you're experiencing trauma, it can actually re-traumatize you. It can bring up the trauma, and that may not be helpful. It can be, and I'll talk about that in depth, but don't force it. It can also do you quite a lot of harm. In the short term at least, make it much more difficult and possibly make you ill again. It certainly had done that to me. So the short meditations don't give you time to get into that state. They can give you the benefits without the downsides. I'll come back to what comes after that next video, or the next few videos, but that's all for now. So thank you for listening. I hope you find that 2-minute meditations throughout the day, whenever you can remember it, very helpful. Oh, and if you can't remember it, put little posters up or little signs up, little post-it notes, or if you don't want to put post-it notes up around your house, Plum Village has an excellent range of postcards you can use, and if you don't want to use those, then try those kids' stickers, little dots, and put them on the corner of a cupboard door or something like that by the kettle. So every time you boil the kettle, you think, okay, I'm going to do a 2-minute or a 30-second or a 10-breath meditation just here before I move on. Same with where you do your teeth, the same as where you have a shower, where you sit on the toilet, where you hang out your clothes. Anything that you do with a regularity, make that part of your practice. Even the vacuuming, put one on the handle of your vacuum cleaner. So every time you do the vacuum, you remember to take your breaths as you're doing it. You make that into one of your meditation practices. So thank you for listening. Bye.